Hello, my name is Kinsley, and I am one of the Graduate Professional Student Engagement Coordinators for the Center for Sexual University. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of how to get your life together in college. So I'll be covering organization, time management, health, and a little tiny bit of finances, but not a ton on that. So we are going to start with finances. I have my little tiny notebook to keep me on track. So the main thing I talk about with finances is just knowing what you're doing. So my biggest piece of advice is at the very least know what bills you have and when they're due. So all of my bills are due on the first of the month, and so I know exactly how much money I need to have in my account on the first of the month. And then the rest of the month I can kind of figure out spending. But at the very least I know how much money I need to have in my account at the first of the month, and all of my bills are due on the first. Other great ways to keep track of your finances, there's a whole bunch of apps. Mint is one I've used in the past that I like. It connects to your bank account and then looks at how you're spending and then recommends a budget based on how you're already spending your money, and will kind of update your budget based on how you're spending habits change. So that one's really cool. Other things people do that really work is you've probably heard of the envelope system, where you take out cash and then you separate it into envelopes based on different categories. People have an envelope for gas, an envelope for groceries, that sort of thing. And so then you can only spend that amount of money that month because that's how much cash you have. I've kind of done a little bit of a similar thing in the past where I have a certain budget every week, and that amount of money is how much I'm allowed to spend that week. So regardless if it's gas, groceries, going out, whatever. And then at the end of the week, whatever I have left over rolls over to the next week. And then at the end of the month, whatever I have left over goes into savings. That's a method that I really liked in the past. Something I'm going to try to get back on track with this year. Another way that people will keep track of their finances, this is more about spending habits. One of my friends at the end of every week goes through and looks what she spent money on and writes down okay, I spent this much money going out to eat. I spent this much money on groceries. And it's more for her about keeping track of how she's spending her money. So if she spent a lot of money going out to eat and not a lot on groceries, maybe next week she'll focus a little bit more on eating out less. Just keeping track of her finances more than really budgeting. Another really great app that I would recommend, this is kind of for your future finances, is Acorns. So Acorns connects to your bank account and it rounds up all your purchases to the nearest dollar. And so if you make a purchase that's $3.98, then it rounds up those 2 cents and it invests them in the stock market. And I really like that because it kind of is a savings as well, because you can pull the money out if you need it, but then also it's just chilling there and investing. And I don't have to think about investing. It handles all of my stock portfolio, all of that. I know investing sounds very adult, but I literally just downloaded this app and it does all of my investing for me. It tends to do a good job. I have no complaints with it. And if you ever are really broke and you don't want to round up, you can just pause your roundups, and it's super handy. So that's all I'm going to talk about finances. Like I said, main piece of advice: know how much at the very least your bills are, and then you can kind of worry about the rest of your budgeting as you go, as you get more comfortable with budgeting. So now we are going to talk a little bit about health and wellness. So as far as physical health, it's probably stuff you've heard before. You should probably try to be active in some capacity. I would say when you're first getting used to your college schedule, things like that, don't worry so much about being active, but try to maybe throw in once or twice a week, go on a walk or go to the gym. The rec has a whole bunch of really cool classes that they do. I know during COVID they were online. They'll probably continue to do a whole bunch of stuff online. You can just pop in, get a little workout in, and then that's it. And I would say that is really important. It's really important for me, for my physical health, or my mental health, as well as obviously physical health. Also joining a club sport. So Penn State has a ton of club sports. When I was in undergrad, I did rowing, which I really, really liked. But there are less serious sports you can do in club sports. Intramural sports are also great if you want to get a group of friends together to be on a team and play against other super casual people. I would really recommend that. Great way to get fit and meet some really cool new people. So as far as mental health, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, staying active is really important, but also finding time to take to yourself. So when we talk a little bit later about time management, I'll talk about this more. but just having time to do the things that you like to do is important. So I really like pottery, I really like ceramics, and so I will try to make time to hit the ceramic studio. Even if it's something like, oh, I have an hour between classes, like I can go throw a pot and then just get a little bit of time in. So yeah, finding things to do that you enjoy is really important. Also, staying on top of your stuff, staying organized, good time management, which once again will come up later, is also really important because if you're constantly stressed, you're constantly feeling like you're missing deadlines or things like that. I know for me that's really bad for my mental health. It makes me really, really anxious, which is not obviously helping anything. So I would really recommend getting organized, finding what works for you, and keeping that for the entire semester. At the very least, staying on top of your deadlines, I think is really important. And finally, finding support on campus. So there's a ton of super cool campus resources, not just at the center, but lots of places do CAPS chats. You can get appointments with CAPS at the health center, finding like faculty and staff that you connect to, making friends, things like that. Really, really, really important to having a good college experience, especially if we end up going back online. Really important to have that support network so that you have people you can reach out to if you feel overwhelmed. All right, so now we're going to move on to organization. This is one of my favorite categories. I love getting organized. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. So my personal favorite way to organize is I have all of these notebooks. So this is, I think, all of my notebooks from this past year. And I have one for each class I'm taking that term. So you can see this was Arabic 1 with Tina, and then I have the classroom on it, and it has all of my notes in it from Arabic. And it's super handy, and so I have one of those for each of my classes. This is how I like to stay organized with my classes. Some people just get the like 5 subject notebooks, and they really like those. Some people take all of their notes on their computer or on their tablet, which can also be super handy. It's kind of finding what works for you. And you're probably thinking like, okay, you have all these notebooks. What do you do with like papers, things like that? I also have folders for each of my classes. They correspond with the color of the notebook. I think that's fun. And then I can put all of my assignments, all of my notes that are not in my notebook, things like that in these little folders. It's all color coordinated. I know where everything is. I really like this method. Another method, something you may have used in high school or if you've heard people using in the past, are binders. So I have this super cute and fun binder. I had a class that required us to print and take notes on stuff for the class. And so I have one binder. And binders are also super handy. You can get a really big one for all of your classes, or you can get different ones for each class. I think they're a little bulky, which is why I don't carry binders, but people tend to really like them. They also have little like pockets for you to put stuff in. You can print out your typed notes if you like to do that and put them in a binder. Really handy. So y'all are probably familiar with Google Docs, something a lot of people use in high school and continue to use in college. Google Docs is really handy because it not only allows you to like have all of your documents in one place, you can make folders for each class. So when I use Google Docs, I usually take notes every week or every like subject unit in one Google Doc and then put them in a folder all together so I can find them. And I really like that method. Google Docs is also really handy because you can share stuff with people. So if you have like a study group, you can share your notes for an exam. You can have people proofread your papers, things like that. Also, when you come to Penn State, you're going to get a OneDrive or like a Microsoft account for like Word, Office, things like that. And that has a similar, they're kind of doing like a similar thing to Google Docs now where you can like share documents and that sort of thing. I'm not super familiar with the OneDrive system, but I know it is kind of like Microsoft's version of Google Docs. So if you like Google, or if you like Word, Microsoft Word, if you prefer that, you might want to check out OneDrive, sorry. OneDrive is also something that you might encounter with like different professors. Sometimes will put things on OneDrive. Also, if you're doing like a PowerPoint, you can share PowerPoints through OneDrive, and some people prefer PowerPoint over Google Slides. So super handy, and you have access to that through the university, through your university email. Also, if you're someone that like really needs help staying organized, there's an app for that. So I have never used any apps for that, but I know there are a ton out there, so do some research, especially like time management apps, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit in a moment. But yeah, also, one final thing if we look at my notes, I go through periods where I'm like incredibly organized with my notes, which once again really works really well for some people and doesn't work well for others. So because my classes at this point are a lot of reading and not a lot of anything else, I take reading notes. So it's something you may or may not have done before. Here are my reading notes. I have really small handwriting. But that can be really helpful if you have a class that's a lot of in-class discussion based on readings. So something like highlighting in your book, which I have a book over here that I've highlighted in, big boy, can be really handy if you own the textbook. Less handy if you don't own the textbook, and so if you don't own the textbook, or if it's like this book, which was like 1,000 pages, and so trying to remember what happened in every chapter without flipping through it is kind of difficult. Taking little tiny notes on each chapter is basically what the chapter is about can be really handy. If you do not own the book, something that I really like are the little flag sticky notes. And I just like put sticky notes everywhere where I would highlight. I use a lot of sticky notes because I highlight a lot in books. But like this is a library book, and so it has a ton of sticky notes in it because I can't highlight in it. But yeah, I really like that. I use that a lot for different things. You can also put little notes on the end of the sticky notes, or you can like color coordinate them. So when I've done book reviews for classes, I'll color code my notes and be like, oh, here are main topic ideas, and here's like support, and here's background, and like here are the different colors. Yeah, keeping your notes organized, really important. And then we have time management. So, you know, college is exciting, you're gonna wanna do all this cool stuff, and that's really great to like try out new clubs, different activities, things like that. But keeping your stuff together, knowing what you have to do, when your assignments are due, when are all your club meetings, things like that, can be a little bit overwhelming. Especially when you start applying for internships, if you're applying for different jobs, when these applications are due, scholarship applications, things like that. So I have a couple different methods of time management. First, I have Google Calendar. So this is my Google Calendar for the upcoming school year. This is my class schedule that I put in my calendar. I like my class schedule in there so I get little alerts on when my classes are. I'll also put my work schedule in here so I can like physically see when I work. I'll also sometimes put like study time that I've blocked out in there so that I know when I'm supposed to be studying, which can be helpful if I have a big assignment coming up. So I love Google Calendar. You'll also have access through Outlook to the like Microsoft Calendar. I'm not sure what it's called. It might just be called the Outlook Calendar. But sometimes if you have meetings that come through your email, that'll show up in there. People will invite you to meetings and different activities on an Outlook calendar. And so that can be really handy to have. So if you prefer like the Microsoft system, you can definitely check that out. Another thing people really use a lot, something I use a lot, are like planners. So this is a school year planner. I prefer year-long planners. This was a gift. It doesn't actually have that much stuff in it. But these are really handy because you can write, so I use this one for like planning my workouts. So if you look in there, that's what it is. You can write like assignments due over here, and then like a checklist or something over here. And then in like the monthly section, you can put when all your assignments are due, when all that kind of stuff is due. Really handy. This is the planner I actually used. This is called Passion Planner. It's set up a little bit differently. So if we go to a page, there we go. So my Passion Planner is set up to do like, it's set up from like 6 a.m. to like, I don't know, 10:30. And so I can put my schedule in. And this helps me keep track of my time if I'm like really, really busy and I need to make sure like I blocked out enough time for my day. And then at the bottom, it has like top priorities in personal and work, which I use for school, and then like an open space. And then it has like this week's focus, good things that happened, it's important to stay positive. So like this was one of my schedules, 1 week. I color code them because I like to color code things. But also, yeah, it's really handy for like keeping track of all of my assignments. So if you look here, I have like Arabic, whatever due, or back to school, there's no school on that day, I have different application stuff due. And these are really, really handy. I really love planners. Just getting it all out, putting it, writing it down is really helpful. At the beginning of the year, you'll get your syllabus for all your classes, get a planner, get a calendar, write all of the important due dates on there. If you're creative and like to get a little artsy, something else you can do is a bullet journal. So bullet journals, people do different things with them. It's basically like you get a blank notebook. So we flip like to the back of this. You can see this is just a blank, like dotted notebook. And then you make whatever you want in it, however you want your planner set up. So this is like a mock-up for June. So you have, it's Pride Month in June. So I have my little rainbow thing. This is how I like to set mine up with a like big to-do list over here. And then my month layout. And then you can make a little spread for each week. So this would be like 1 week. And then this is another week. I have a whole bunch of different spreads. And then you can put different things in there. So like this page, I have like habits I want to track, the weather and my mood, just kind of see like how much my mood is correlated to the weather. This says reading hours, but really it is like homework hours, me keeping track of this. Once again, those are like my mood, my habits, how much sleep I'm getting, how much work I'm doing that day, and then keeping track of my sleep. So in this fake one I made, I have a very decent sleep schedule. And then you can also do like yearly stuff. So in the beginning of my book, I have, let's see, this is the back. I have stuff like my whole year, to do my themes for each month. I have planned out my schedule. And over here I have a little like when stuff is due in each class. And once again, this is one of those things that like every person wants it a little bit differently, and so the way that you set it up is totally up to you. My mood tracker, I didn't use this for very long. I got distracted and didn't end up keeping up with it. But that's really great if you're artsy. I used to like to sit every night watching an episode of TV and I would draw a page. And those are really handy. Also, if you're someone that like cannot find a planner that has everything you want in it, great way to do it. And you don't have to get as like artsy as some of my pages are. You can kind of just put whatever you want in there. And then to wrap it all up, to bring it all together, we have a wall calendar. I like wall calendars because I can like look at them without opening up a book. So it's up on my wall. I put all of my assignment due dates in them. It helps me keep track of the day, especially during like online school. I think this one has like who's taking out the trash that day. Me or my roommate. This was the one in my living room. And it just helps me keep track. I would recommend getting a wall calendar that you really like. So this one is dog shaming. So things dogs have done that people want to shame them for. It's really funny. One of them is I eat TV remotes. It's just a dog next to a TV remote he ate. I love this calendar. Yeah, so I really like wall calendars. I think they're super duper handy. It lets me really like get a look at everything I'm doing. So I know that we all procrastinate. I'm really bad about this. But trying to stay on top of when your assignments are due and thinking about how long it's going to take you to do them can be really handy. So I would like to break stuff down and make checklists. So I'll be like, okay, I have this essay coming up. What do I need to do for the essay? I need to do research. I need to make an outline. I need to write a rough draft. I need to proofread it. So I'll like make a checklist that is each little thing, because then I can check off each item as I go. And once again, these are things that work really well for me. I love checklists. I love to check things off. I love feeling like I got accomplished to do something. Also, like rewarding yourself, right? So being like, oh, I did everything I was supposed to do on my checklist today. I'm gonna go buy myself coffee, or like I like ceramics. I'll go give an extra hour in the ceramics studio, or something like that. I think that is like a really great way to stay motivated. Try to avoid like punishing yourself for not getting things done. So being like, oh, I didn't do this, so I can't go to the ceramics studio. Because I don't know, like to me that just kind of makes you feel like you failed at something, and it's okay to like not get everything done you need to do, especially if you're staying on top of things like that. It's okay to like fall behind a little bit, take a little break, and then get back up. Yeah, so something else, I guess another like handy thing is if your teachers are good about putting all of your assignments in Canvas correctly, they will show up on your Canvas calendar and you can see what you have due in Canvas. So if you haven't used Canvas before, it's like a website and there's an app that all of your classes will have a page in, and in theory, your assignments will be in there, and your grades, and your teachers will have you submit digital assignments through there, things like that. And if everything's in there correctly, there's a calendar and it will show you when all your assignments are due. So that's also a super great way to figure things out, especially if a syllabus is like really confusing. I definitely have some syllabuses that are like, oh, we just have like some assignments due, and we'll tell you the date later, and you're like, awesome, amazing. And then they put in Canvas, and that's on your Canvas calendar. So that's really handy. And finally, studying. So studying is something that everyone does differently, and everyone, I guess, like has their own personal way. The biggest thing I'm going to say about studying is that just because you were told to do something a certain way or a certain time or whatever does not mean that you need to keep doing it that way. So for me, I am like most productive between the hours of like 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. So for the first couple of years I was in college, I was like, I need to study like before dinner, and I need to go to bed early, and I was just struggling. I am not productive in the late afternoon. Like I really just want to take a nap. I cannot get anything done between like 2 and 5 or 6. I just am not productive at all. And so at this point, I figured out that if I need to get work done after dinner, I just go to the library and I find a little corner and I will, pop out some essays. And that works really well for me. Some people really study well in the morning. They'll get up early before their classes, they'll sit in their house, in the library, in a cafe, whatever, and they will work on their stuff. Also, besides time of day, finding the location. So I do not study well at home. I do not study well in busy spaces. Even with music on, whatever, I like to go find like a little tiny corner in the library, somewhere where like out of the way and like set up. I also don't like to sit in the same spot like hours on end. So when I start getting restless, I'll pack my stuff up. I'll walk to a different part of the library. Or walk to a different building to study in. On campus, there's a lot of really cool like study spots in a lot of the academic buildings that I feel like no one uses. But some people study really well in like the student union where it's really busy, or in a really loud cafe, things like that. So I usually try to get out and study on the weekends. Sometimes I'll like treat myself to coffee and I'll just sit in a quiet cafe somewhere and study. So beyond just finding like a time of day to study, finding a location that works really well for you is really important as well. And then also study groups. So study groups can be really helpful and also really distracting. I would say for study groups, once again, it's like finding what you like. It's also not particularly important that you study in groups of people that are in the same classes as you, because sometimes just like sitting together with people doing work makes you feel like you should be doing work, which can be really helpful. Also though, if you have a really difficult class, in Canvas, a lot of the time, you're able to see the people in your classes and you can send out like a group message to all of them. If you want to start a study group, like send a message out, be like, hey, y'all, does anyone else want to start a study group? So for Arabic, I sent a message out, started a group chat, and we had like a once a week study group for Arabic. And that was super, super handy, super, super helpful. Maybe not for like your like 500 person lectures, but some of your smaller classes, that can be really handy. Talking to people in your classes, you don't need to be your friend or their best friend, but like having one or two people in the class, like you think that if you miss class, they would give you the notes. That can be really handy. Yeah, so I know that was a lot of information, but the main thing I'm going to say, just to like finish this off, is don't be afraid to try new things, to experiment, to branch out from what you did in high school or what you've done in the past. I know I have changed a lot in the way that I study, that I do time management, that I organize my stuff, all that stuff. And I've kind of, throughout a few years, figured out that it works really well for me. But also, like, if one of my friends is like, oh, I do this, it works really well, it's something that I usually am willing to try out. Yeah, so try new things, do a little research, and don't be hard on yourself. You know, it takes a lot of time to transition into college from high school for some people. For some people, it's really quick, but for some people, it's a big adjustment. You know, you're away from home. Classes are a lot different. Expectations can be a lot different. Yeah, so just figure out what works for you, find your stride, and I hope that this was a helpful video. Thank you for joining.